My uncle was offered $10 million to dive to an unmapped trench with his crew. He came back alone, burned the money, and hasn't touched water since. Yesterday, he told me why. Raymond was bleeding from his eyes when I found him on his bathroom floor at 3 a.m. Black liquid that smelled like deep ocean pouring from his tear ducts while he screamed about things with too many limbs pulling his crew into the cylinder. The paramedics said it was a stroke, but I'd seen the marks on his arms. Circular burns that pulsed with faint blue light in the darkness. Same color as the glow he described from 8,000 meters down in a trench that officially doesn't have anything worth finding. He grabbed my wrist in the ambulance with strength that shouldn't exist in a dying man and whispered that they'd followed him up, that burning the money hadn't been enough, that living in the desert for 4 years only delayed what was always going to happen. His pupils were dilated so wide there was almost no iris visible, just black circles that reflected light wrong, showing depths that shouldn't fit inside human eyes. He said I needed to hear everything before they came for him, before they realized he'd broken silence. The hospital admitted him with internal bleeding from unknown causes, organs failing in sequence like someone was systematically shutting down his systems. Doctors couldn't explain why his blood contained trace amounts of seawater from impossible depths, or why his body temperature kept dropping despite being in a heated room, or why he kept whispering coordinates in his sleep that matched where his crew disappeared in 2019. I stayed with him through the night while he told me about the $10 million dive to map an unmapped section of the Kermadec Trench, about the structure they found sitting on the ocean floor like a temple that predated human civilization, about the cylinder in its center that glowed with bioluminescence that wasn't biological, and about what Marcus Thorne had released when he touched it despite Raymond's warnings. He told me about the things that came out of the cylinder, about how his crew's screams sounded different through 8,000 meters of water, about swimming toward the surface alone while something ancient decided whether to let him reach it. By dawn, Raymond was seizing, his body convulsing in rhythms that looked wrong, like something inside was trying to move in directions human anatomy doesn't accommodate. The black liquid was pouring from his mouth now, pooling on the pillow and evaporating into mist that made the room smell like deep ocean trenches. He grabbed a pen from the bedside table and wrote coordinates on his own arm with shaking hands, numbers that burned into his skin like brands. He looked at me with those two dark eyes and said I needed to warn anyone who might take similar offers, needed to explain why some places stay unmapped, why some depths remain unexplored. The first seizure had happened on the ship 3 days after Raymond surfaced alone from the Kermadec Trench, his dive suit's external cameras showing nothing but static from the 4 hours he'd been down there, the other 4 suits transmitting vital signs that flatlined simultaneously at a depth where retrieval was impossible. He'd climbed onto the deck and immediately vomited seawater that shouldn't have been in his sealed suit, water that contained organisms that don't exist in any marine biology database. Vincent Harlow had been waiting with a briefcase containing $10 million in various currencies, non-sequential bills that couldn't be traced, payment for a job completed despite the catastrophic loss of crew. He tried to hand Raymond the money while crew members were still processing what had happened. Raymond had taken the briefcase, walked to the edge of the deck, and thrown it overboard, watching millions of dollars sink into water that had already taken everything else. Harlow had pulled a gun and informed Raymond that the consortium didn't accept contract breaches, that accepting the job meant completing all obligations, including silence and acceptance of payment. Raymond had looked at him with eyes that were already starting to change and said that the money was contaminated, that everything from that depth carried something back with it, that Harlow could shoot him or let him leave. But either way, the consortium would regret sending anyone down there. The ship's crew separated them before violence escalated, but Raymond overheard Harlow on a satellite phone reporting failure, saying the asset had been compromised. 3 days later, when they docked in Wellington, Harlow was gone, and the ship's crew had been replaced by people who claimed no knowledge of any deep-sea expedition. The Perseverance was scrubbed clean. Every piece of equipment that had been used mysteriously malfunctioned or disappeared, and the consortium apparently never existed according to any corporate registration Raymond could find. He'd gone to Marcus Thorne's house to tell his best friend's family what happened, but the house was empty. Furniture removed, no forwarding address, neighbors claiming the Thornes had moved suddenly 3 days earlier. Same story with Stella Vance's apartment, Yuki Tanaka's rental property, Leo Cardenas' family home. Everyone connected to the dead divers had been relocated or removed, evidence erased so thoroughly it suggested resources that terrified Raymond more than anything he'd seen in the trench. The first time Raymond saw Marcus was 6 weeks after the dive, standing in his bathroom mirror at 2 a.m., looking exactly as he had before descending, except for the eyes that were completely black and the smile that showed too many teeth, arranged in patterns that didn't match human dental structure. Marcus had spoken, but not with sound, projecting words directly into Raymond's mind, saying that the crew wasn't dead. Full story is linked below or on my channel.